Marcus Chun had always been the smallest boy in his class. At 17, he barely reached 5 feet 4 inches, and his thin frame made him look even younger than he was. The other boys at the Royal Military Academy would push past him in the corridors, their heavy boots echoing against the stone walls while Marcus pressed himself against the cold granite to avoid being knocked down. The academy was a place where tradition ruled everything. For 300 years, the sons of noble families had walked these halls, their names carved into the honor boards that lined the main entrance. Names like Blackwood, Ashworth, and Sterling, families whose bloodlines could be traced back to the founding of the kingdom. Marcus Chun did not belong to any of these families. His father worked as a translator in the foreign ministry, a quiet man who spent his days bent over documents written in languages most people had never heard of. His mother taught piano lessons to the children of wealthy merchants, her gentle fingers dancing across keys that had seen better days. They were good people, honest people, but they were not nobility. They had saved every coin for years to afford Marcus's tuition at the academy, selling their small home and moving into a cramped apartment above a bakery. The morning Marcus first walked through the academy gates, his mother had pressed a small compass into his palm. "Remember," she had whispered, "true north never changes, no matter how lost you feel." He had nodded, not understanding then what those words would mean in the months to come. The Royal Military Academy was not just a school. It was the training ground for the kingdom's most elite soldiers, the royal guard who protected the palace, and the royal family. Every graduate who excelled would be offered a position in this prestigious unit, an honor that came with a salary larger than most people earned in a lifetime. But excellence at the academy was measured by more than just skill. It was measured by breeding, by connections, by the weight of your family name. From his first day, Marcus learned this lesson well. During the morning assembly, when Commandant Whitmore called out names for dormitory assignments, the noble boys were placed in the East Wing, where the rooms had tall windows and comfortable beds. Marcus found himself in the West Wing, in a cramped space he shared with 3 other scholarship students. The walls were thin, the heating barely worked, and the single window faced the academy's garbage collection area. His roommates were just as out of place as he was. There was Ahmed, whose father was a mechanic in the capital's transport division. David came from a farming family in the northern provinces, his hands still stained from years of working the soil. The third was James, whose mother cleaned offices in the government district. They were all smart, all dedicated, but none of them had the easy confidence that seemed to flow through the noble boys like water. The classes at the academy were divided into 3 main areas: academic studies, physical training, and military skills. Marcus excelled in the academic work, his mind sharp from years of helping his father with translation projects. Mathematics, history, strategy, and languages came easily to him. But physical training was a different story. Captain Morrison, the physical training instructor, was a mountain of a man who had served in the Royal Guard for 20 years before being assigned to teach at the academy. His voice could shake the windows when he shouted commands, and his eyes seemed to find every weakness in a student's performance. He had little patience for boys who struggled to keep up. "Chun," Morrison would bellow across the training yard, "are you planning to float to victory on those skinny arms? Drop, and give me 50 push-ups." While boys like William Blackwood and Thomas Sterling moved through the exercises with practiced ease, Marcus struggled with every pull-up, every rope climb, every sprint around the academy grounds. His arms shook during weapons drills, and his legs cramped during long marches. The other students would finish their exercises and stand watching him struggle to complete his, some snickering behind their hands. William Blackwood was everything Marcus was not: tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of natural athleticism that made difficult tasks look effortless. His great-grandfather had been a general in the Royal Guard, his grandfather had served as personal bodyguard to the previous king, and his father currently held the position of Royal Guard captain. William's acceptance into the Royal Guard after graduation was not a question, but a certainty. "Look at the little translator's son," William would say loud enough for others to hear when Marcus struggled during training. Maybe he should go back to his books where he belongs. Thomas Sterling was cut from the same cloth. His family owned vast estates in the southern provinces, and his older brother was already serving in the Royal Guard. Thomas moved through the academy as if he owned it, his expensive boots clicking confidently on the stone floors. He had a way of looking at Marcus that made him feel like dirt on those same boots. The worst part was not the physical training itself, but the way the instructors seemed to accept that some boys were simply meant to fail. When Marcus couldn't complete a rope climb, Instructor Hamilton would shake his head and mark something in his notebook. When William Blackwood struggled with the same exercise, Hamilton would offer encouragement and extra training time. "Some boys are born to lead," Captain Morrison announced during one particularly difficult training session. "Others are born to follow." The academy doesn't change what's in a man's blood. It only reveals it. Marcus felt those words like a physical blow. He pressed his lips together and kept working, but doubt began to creep into his mind like smoke under a door. Maybe they were right. Maybe he didn't belong here. Maybe his parents had wasted their savings on an impossible dream. The academic classes provided some relief from the constant physical challenges. Professor Williams, who taught military history, was a fair man who judged students only on their knowledge and effort. In his classroom, Marcus could forget about his small stature and weak arms. He absorbed every lesson about famous battles, brilliant strategies, and the heroes who had shaped the kingdom's military tradition. During one lecture about the siege of Grimwall, Professor Williams described how a small force had held off a much larger army through superior positioning and precise marksmanship. Sometimes, the professor said, looking directly at Marcus, intelligence and skill matter more than size and strength. Marcus clung to those words during the darkest moments of his first semester. When William and Thomas would bump into him accidentally in the dining hall, sending his food tray crashing to the floor. When they would hide his training gear, so he would be late for morning exercises. When they would whisper jokes about charity cases just loud enough for him to hear. His roommates faced similar treatment, but they seemed to handle it better than Marcus did. Ahmed had a quick wit that let him deflect insults with humor. David's farm background had given him a thick skin and patient endurance. James simply ignored the harassment, focusing entirely on his studies with single-minded determination. But Marcus felt every slight, every sneer, every dismissive comment like a weight on his shoulders. He would lie awake at night in his narrow bed, listening to the wind rattle the old window frame, wondering if he had the strength to continue. The academy's daily schedule was ruthless. Morning physical training at dawn, followed by breakfast in the great dining hall where the noble students sat at tables near the tall windows, while scholarship students took whatever seats remained. Academic classes filled the morning and early afternoon, covering everything from battlefield tactics to diplomatic protocol. Advanced weapons training took place in the late afternoon, followed by evening study periods, and lights out at 10 o'clock sharp. Weapons training was where Marcus faced his greatest humiliation. The academy taught proficiency with swords, spears, and hand-to-hand combat. But the most prestigious skill was marksmanship with the academy's collection of precision rifles. These were beautiful weapons, crafted by master gunsmiths and maintained with obsessive care. Only the most promising students were allowed to train with them. Marcus had never fired a gun before arriving at the academy. His family owned no weapons, and his father's work involved words rather than violence. When Weapons Master Thompson first placed a training rifle in his hands, Marcus felt its weight and complexity like a foreign language he would never learn to speak. The shooting range was located behind the academy's main buildings, a long stretch of grass with targets set at various distances. The closest targets were 50 meters away, while the most challenging shots extended to 500 meters or more. Advanced students were expected to hit targets at 300 meters consistently, while only the very best could reach the longest distances with any accuracy. William Blackwood proved to be as naturally gifted with a rifle as he was with everything else. His first shots were not perfect, but they showed the kind of steady hand and keen eye that could be developed into real skill. Thomas Sterling, while not quite as talented as William, still managed to keep his shots grouped reasonably well around the target centers. Marcus's first attempts were disasters. His hands shook from the rifle's weight, his breathing was irregular, and he had no understanding of how to properly align the weapon's sights. His shots scattered wildly around the target range, some missing the targets entirely and embedding themselves in the earthen backdrop. "Chunt," weapons master Thompson barked after Marcus's particularly poor performance during his third week of training. "Are you trying to hit the targets or declare war on the countryside?" The other students laughed, and Marcus felt his cheeks burn with embarrassment. He wanted to explain that he was trying his best, that he had never done this before, that he needed more time to learn. But explanations sounded like excuses, and excuses were weakness. Thompson was a former Royal Guard sniper who had served with distinction for 15 years before a leg injury ended his field career. He was a man who understood precision and respected skill, but he had little patience for students who couldn't demonstrate natural ability quickly. In his view, marksmanship was either in a person's blood or it wasn't. "Some boys have the gift," Thompson would say while watching the advanced students practice. "Others are better suited for different duties." Those different duties were understood by everyone to mean positions outside the Royal Guard. Ordinary military service, administrative roles, or civilian careers that required academy training, but offered none of the prestige or rewards that came with protecting the royal family. As the weeks passed, Marcus began to notice patterns in his failures. His shots were indeed scattered, but they followed certain tendencies. When he aimed for the center of a target, his bullets consistently struck low and to the left. When he adjusted for that pattern, his accuracy improved slightly. It wasn't much, but it was something. He began staying after official training sessions ended, using his personal time to practice with the basic training rifles that students were allowed to check out for additional work. The range was usually empty during these evening sessions, lit by electric lights that cast harsh shadows across the grass. Marcus would set up targets at the closest distance and work methodically through shooting positions and breathing techniques he had studied in the Academy's library. The library had become his refuge during difficult days. While other students socialized in the common rooms or played cards in their dormitories, Marcus would find a quiet corner among the military manuals and historical texts. The Academy's collection included detailed treatises on marksmanship theory, written by famous snipers and shooting experts from around the world. He read about breathing control, about the way a marksman's heartbeat could affect accuracy between shots. He studied the effects of wind, temperature, and humidity on bullet trajectory. He learned about different shooting positions, different ways to hold and steady a rifle, different methods for calculating distance and adjusting aim. The theoretical knowledge was fascinating, but putting it into practice remained frustratingly difficult. His evening sessions on the range showed gradual improvement, but progress was slow and often interrupted by setbacks. Some nights his shots would group reasonably well around a target, filling him with hope. Other nights his accuracy would mysteriously disappear, leaving him more discouraged than before. His roommates were supportive, but focused on their own struggles. Ahmed was proving to be excellent at tactical planning and leadership exercises. David's farm background had given him exceptional skills in field survival and equipment maintenance. James excelled at military law and regulations. They were all finding their strengths, while Marcus continued to search for his. The first semester examinations arrived like a storm front, bringing stress and anxiety to every student at the academy. Academic tests were challenging but fair, and Marcus performed well in subjects like military history, strategy, and languages. Physical fitness tests were more difficult for him, but his months of training had improved his strength and endurance enough to achieve passing marks. The marksmanship examination was what kept him awake at night with worry. Students were required to demonstrate proficiency at distances of 100, 200, and 300 meters. Failure in any section meant repeating the entire semester, and 2 failures meant dismissal from the academy. On the morning of the test, Marcus arrived at the range early to practice with the training rifles. His hands were steady despite his nervousness, and his shots were grouping better than usual around the target centers. He felt a cautious optimism as other students began arriving for their scheduled examination times. William Blackwood and Thomas Sterling tested early in the day, both performing with the confidence and skill that everyone expected. Their shots were precise and consistent at all 3 distances, earning them marks that would place them among the top students in their class. When Marcus's turn came, Weapons Master Thompson checked his name off a list and handed him a rifle that felt heavier than usual in his nervous hands. Standard examination, Thompson said in his clipped, professional voice. 5 shots at each distance. You need to hit the target zone with at least 3 out of 5 shots to pass each section. The first distance was 100 meters, the closest range that Marcus had been practicing on during his evening sessions. He took his position, controlled his breathing as he had read about, and fired his first shot. The bullet struck the target within the passing zone, not centered but acceptable. His second shot was also successful, but something went wrong with his third attempt. Perhaps his confidence made him careless, or perhaps the pressure of examination conditions affected his technique. The shot went wide, missing the target entirely. His fourth shot was better, hitting the edge of the passing zone. His fifth and final shot also found the target. 3 hits out of 5. He had passed the first section by the narrowest possible margin. The 200-meter distance was more challenging, requiring greater precision and steadier nerves. Marcus's first shot missed, his second hit near the edge of his zone, his third missed again. With only 2 shots remaining, he needed both to hit for a passing mark. His fourth shot felt perfect as he squeezed the trigger. The bullet struck well within the target zone. Everything depended on his final attempt. Marcus took extra time to steady himself, controlling his breathing and checking his sight alignment twice before firing. The shot hit the target zone, just barely, but clearly enough to satisfy the examination requirements. 3 hits out of 5 again. Another narrow pass. The 300-meter test would determine whether he could continue at the academy or pack his belongings for the journey home. At this distance, the target appeared much smaller, and even tiny errors in aim would result in complete misses. Marcus's first shot missed. His second shot missed. His third shot hit the target zone, giving him hope. His fourth shot missed again, leaving him with one final chance to achieve the minimum passing score. Standing on that firing line, Marcus thought about his parents working extra hours to pay for his academy fees. He thought about his mother's compass, still kept carefully in his foot locker, and her words about true north never changing. He thought about all the times William and Thomas had suggested he didn't belong here, all the times instructors had written him off as hopeless. His final shot hit the target zone with room to spare. 3 hits out of 5. He had passed the marksmanship examination with the lowest possible scores, but he had passed. He would continue into the second semester, while some other students who had performed better than him all year, but failed the examination, would be going home. That evening, as Marcus cleaned his rifle after the test, Weapons Master Thompson approached him with an expression that was difficult to read. "Chun," Thompson said, "your scores today were barely acceptable, but you showed something I don't see in many students." Marcus looked up from the rifle he was cleaning, unsure what response was expected. "Determination," Thompson continued. "Most boys who struggle the way you have been struggling give up long before examinations. They find excuses or they accept that they're not cut out for this work. You kept trying." Marcus felt a small glow of pride at the unexpected praise, but Thompson wasn't finished. "However," the weapons master said, "determination alone won't be enough for advanced training. The second semester marksmanship standards are much higher. Students who barely pass the first semester usually fail the second semester examinations completely." The message was clear. Marcus had earned the right to continue, but his position remained precarious. The academy was giving him a chance to prove he belonged there, but most people expected him to waste that chance. As the first semester ended and students prepared for a brief winter break, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. Instead of returning home to spend time with his parents, he would remain at the academy during the break period. He would use the empty range and available training time to improve his marksmanship skills beyond anything he had achieved before. His roommates thought he was making a mistake. "You need rest," Ahmed argued. "Everyone needs time away from this place." But Marcus had realized something during the examination. His progress had been slow but steady. Every hour of practice had made a small difference. If he could multiply those hours during the break, when he would have access to equipment and range time without competition from other students, he might be able to transform his barely adequate skills into something approaching real competence. The academy during winter break was a different place. Most students and many instructors had gone home for the holidays, leaving the buildings quiet and the grounds covered with snow. Marcus had the shooting range almost entirely to himself, along with access to training rifles and unlimited ammunition for practice. He established a routine that would have impressed even his harshest critics. Every morning after breakfast, he would check out a rifle and spend hours on the range, working systematically through different distances and shooting positions. He practiced prone shooting, sitting positions, and standing shots. He worked on breathing techniques until they became automatic. He learned to calculate wind drift and adjust his aim for different weather conditions. The library provided additional resources during the quiet break period. Marcus found advanced marksmanship manuals that covered topics far beyond basic academy training. He read about the psychology of precision shooting, about mental techniques used by competitive marksmen and military snipers. He studied the technical aspects of ballistics, learning how different factors affected bullet flight paths. Most importantly, he began to understand the connection between theory and practice that had been missing from his earlier efforts. The knowledge he gained from reading helped him interpret what was happening during his shooting sessions. When shots went astray, he could usually identify the cause and work on correcting it. By the end of the winter break, something fundamental had changed in Marcus's approach to marksmanship. His shots were no longer scattered randomly around the targets. They were grouping tightly, even if the groups weren't always centered where he aimed. His accuracy at 100 and 200 meters had improved dramatically, and he was beginning to achieve consistent hits at 300 meters. More importantly, his confidence had grown. The rifle no longer felt foreign in his hands. He understood its weight, its balance, the way it responded to different holding techniques. He had developed the steady nerves and controlled breathing that marked experienced shooters. When other students returned from winter break and second semester classes resumed, they found a different Marcus Chun on the shooting range. The transformation was not immediately obvious to his classmates or instructors. Marcus still looked the same, small, thin, unremarkable in every physical way. But when Weapons Master Thompson called the class to attention for their first marksmanship session of the new semester, something had changed in the way Marcus carried himself. The winter had been long and cold, with snow covering the academy grounds for weeks at a time. While other students had returned home to warm houses and family celebrations, Marcus had spent every day on the shooting range. His hands bore calluses from countless hours of rifle handling, and his shoulder showed a permanent bruise from proper rifle positioning. More importantly, his eyes had developed the steady, focused look that marked experienced marksmen. "Welcome back," Thompson announced to the assembled class. "I hope you all enjoyed your break, because second semester training begins at a much higher level than anything you've experienced before. Today, we'll establish new baseline scores for each student, and I can tell you now that the standards have increased significantly." William Blackwood stretched casually, his expensive winter jacket hanging perfectly on his broad shoulders. "How much higher?" he asked with the confidence of someone who had never failed at anything. Thompson's smile was not particularly friendly. First semester passing scores required 3 hits out of 5 at each distance. Second semester requires 4 hits out of 5 at distances up to 400 meters, with at least 2 hits out of 5 at 500 meters. A murmur of concern went through the group of students. These were substantial increases in both accuracy and distance requirements. Several students who had passed first semester examinations with comfortable margins would now struggle to meet the new standards. Additionally, Thompson continued, "We'll be introducing advanced shooting positions, moving targets, and time pressure scenarios. The Royal Guard doesn't have the luxury of unlimited time and perfect conditions when protecting the royal family." Thomas Sterling raised his hand. "What about equipment? Will we still be using the training rifles?" "Advanced students will have access to precision rifles similar to those used by active Royal Guard snipers," Thompson replied. "But that privilege must be earned through demonstrated competence with standard equipment." The class moved to the shooting range, where targets had been set up at the new required distances. The 500-meter targets looked impossibly small from the firing line, distant specks that seemed to waver in the morning air. Marcus felt a familiar nervous tension in his stomach, but it was different from the panic he had experienced during first semester. Now, it was the focused tension of an athlete preparing for competition. Thompson called students forward in alphabetical order for their baseline testing. William Blackwood performed first, his shots crisp and well-controlled at the shorter distances. At 400 meters, he achieved 4 hits out of 5, exactly meeting the minimum standard. At 500 meters, he managed 1 solid hit, and one that clipped the edge of the target zone for his required 2 hits. Thomas Sterling followed with similar results, though his shooting was slightly less consistent than Williams. Both young men had clearly maintained their skills during the winter break, but neither had improved dramatically. Ahmed struggled with the longer distances, managing to pass the 400-meter requirement, but failing completely at 500 meters. David achieved similar results, his farm background giving him steady hands, but not the precision needed for extreme distances. James passed all requirements, but with little margin for error. When Thompson called "Chun," the other students paid little attention. Marcus's poor first semester performance had established him in their minds as someone who would struggle to meet even basic requirements. They expected him to fail the new standards completely. Marcus stepped to the firing line and accepted the standard training rifle from Thompson's assistant. The weapon felt familiar now, almost like an extension of his own body. He checked the sight settings, tested the trigger pull, and settled into his shooting position with smooth, practiced movements. His first shot at 100 meters struck the target dead center. His second shot hit just slightly high and right at center, still well within the target zone. His third, fourth, and fifth shots all found their marks with precision that surprised even Marcus himself. 5 hits out of 5 at the closest distance. At 200 meters, his accuracy remained excellent. 4 shots struck within inches of the target center, while the 5th hit near the edge of the scoring zone. 4 hits out of 5, exceeding the minimum requirement. The 300-meter distance showed similar results. Marcus's shots were grouped tightly around the target center, with 4 clear hits and 1 shot that just missed the scoring area. Another solid pass. By this point, other students were beginning to pay attention to his performance. Marcus Chun, the small boy who had barely scraped through first semester examinations, was shooting better than most of them had ever seen him shoot. At 400 meters, the real test began. This was a distance that challenged even advanced students, requiring perfect technique and complete mental focus. Marcus took extra time to study the target, checking wind conditions and adjusting his sight picture accordingly. His first shot hit the target zone cleanly. His second shot struck slightly low, but still within the scoring area. His third shot missed entirely, sailing just over the target. His fourth shot found the center of the target zone. His fifth shot hit near the bottom edge of the scoring area. 4 hits out of 5 at 400 meters. Marcus had not only met the new requirement, he had exceeded it. The 500-meter test would determine whether he could truly compete with the class's best marksman. At this extreme distance, even tiny errors in technique would result in complete misses. The target appeared so small that it was difficult to see clearly through the rifle's basic sights. Marcus settled into his position and began the careful process of long-range shooting. He studied the wind indicators placed along the range, noting the slight breeze that would push bullets to the left. He adjusted his aim point accordingly and controlled his breathing until his pulse was steady and slow. His first shot struck the target zone with a solid hit that drew murmurs of surprise from watching students. His second shot missed low, hitting the earthen backdrop behind the target. His third shot missed high and to the right. His fourth shot clipped the edge of the target zone for his second required hit. His fifth shot missed, but it no longer mattered. 2 hits out of 5 at 500 meters. Marcus had met every requirement for advanced marksmanship training. Weapons Master Thompson studied the target results with an expression that revealed nothing of his thoughts. "Interesting improvement, Chun," he said finally. "Report to the advanced training section tomorrow morning." As the class returned their rifles and prepared to leave the range, Marcus found himself surrounded by classmates who had barely spoken to him during the entire first semester. "How did you do that?" Ahmed asked, genuine amazement in his voice. "I practiced during winter break," Marcus replied simply. "Practice?" Thomas Sterling had approached the group, his usual confident demeanor replaced by something approaching respect. "What kind of practice?" "I've been shooting since I was 12 years old, and I barely managed to pass the 500-meter test." Marcus shrugged. "I read about technique and spent time on the range working on fundamentals." William Blackwood joined the conversation, though his expression suggested he was not entirely pleased by Marcus's unexpected success. "One good day doesn't prove anything," he said. "Advanced training is much more difficult than basic marksmanship tests." "We'll see," Marcus replied quietly. That evening in his dormitory, Marcus's roommates peppered him with questions about his winter training routine. He explained his daily practice schedule, the technical manuals he had studied, and the gradual improvements he had achieved through hundreds of hours of focused work. "You spent the entire break here?" David asked with disbelief. "Didn't you want to go home and see your family?" Marcus had wanted exactly that, but he had wanted something else more. He had wanted to prove that he belonged at the academy, that he could compete with students who had every natural and social advantage. His sacrifice during winter break was beginning to pay dividends he had hardly dared to hope for. Advanced marksmanship training took place 3 days per week in a specialized section of the Academy's weapons program. Only students who demonstrated exceptional ability were invited to participate, and the training was designed to prepare them for potential service as Royal Guard snipers. The advanced program was taught by Master Sergeant Reynolds, a legendary marksman who had served as the Royal Guard's chief sniper for 12 years before accepting a teaching position at the Academy. Reynolds was a small, quiet man whose appearance gave no hint of his extraordinary skills until he picked up a rifle. Then, he became something approaching magic, capable of hitting targets at distances that seemed impossible to other shooters. Advanced marksmanship, Reynolds announced to his new class of 8 students, is not about shooting better than other people. It's about achieving perfection under conditions where anything less than perfection means failure. The advanced training program introduced concepts that pushed even talented students to their limits. Moving targets that simulated protecting the royal family during public appearances. Shooting from unusual positions that might be required in emergency situations. Night shooting using specialized equipment. Most challenging of all, precision shooting under extreme time pressure. Marcus found himself in a class with William Blackwood, Thomas Sterling, and 5 other students who represented the Academy's most promising marksmen. For the first time since arriving at the Academy, he was competing on equal terms with his classmates. His winter practice had given him technical skills that matched or exceeded those of students who had grown up with rifles in their hands. Reynolds structured each class session around specific challenges that tested different aspects of precision shooting. Students might be required to hit targets at 300 meters while lying in uncomfortable positions that simulated real-world conditions. Or they might practice shooting at moving targets from behind barriers that limited their fields of view. During one memorable session, Reynolds set up a scenario where students had to protect a cardboard figure representing a member of the royal family. Hostile targets would appear at random intervals and locations, while the student had to identify and engage threats without hitting innocent civilian targets that were mixed among the hostiles. William Blackwood went first, his natural athleticism allowing him to move quickly between shooting positions. His accuracy was good, and he managed to hit most of the threat targets while avoiding civilian casualties. But his time was slow, and in a real emergency, speed could be the difference between success and tragedy. Thomas Sterling performed similarly, showing good accuracy but struggling with the time pressure. Several other students achieved comparable results, hitting most of their targets but taking longer than optimal to complete the exercise. When Marcus's turn came, something unexpected happened. His small size, which had been such a disadvantage during physical training, became an asset in this type of scenario. He could move quickly between positions, fitting into spaces that larger students couldn't use effectively. His winter practice had given him confidence with a rifle that translated into fast, accurate shooting. Marcus completed the exercise in record time while hitting every threat target and avoiding all civilian casualties. His performance was not just good, it was flawless. Reynolds studied the results with interest. "Chun, that was exceptional shooting. Where did you learn to move like that?" "I practiced different positions during winter break," Marcus replied. "I wanted to be ready for whatever advanced training required." "Show me your prone position," Reynolds instructed. Marcus dropped to the ground and settled into his shooting stance with fluid, practiced movements. His position was textbook perfect, every detail optimized for accuracy and stability. Sitting position. Marcus transitioned smoothly to a seated stance that would allow accurate shooting from behind cover. Standing offhand. The most difficult shooting position, requiring the marksman to support the rifle without any external aids, tested every aspect of technique. Marcus's stance was solid, his grip correct, his breathing controlled. Reynolds nodded approvingly. "Your fundamentals are excellent. Better than most students I've seen." Over the following weeks, Marcus continued to excel in advanced training scenarios. His accuracy improved steadily, and his confidence grew with each successful session. More importantly, he began to understand the tactical thinking that separated competent marksmen from true snipers. Reynolds taught his students to think like chess players, always considering multiple moves ahead. A Royal Guard sniper didn't just hit targets. He anticipated where targets would appear, positioned himself for maximum effectiveness, and maintained awareness of everything happening in his environment. A sniper's greatest weapon, Reynolds would say, is not his rifle. It's his mind. Marcus absorbed these lessons eagerly. His academic strengths, which had seemed irrelevant to marksmanship during basic training, proved valuable in the complex scenarios that Reynolds designed for advanced students. He could calculate wind drift and bullet trajectories quickly, analyze tactical situations effectively, and remember detailed information about targets and threats. Meanwhile, his relationship with other students began to change subtly. William Blackwood and Thomas Sterling no longer treated him as an outsider who didn't belong at the academy. They still didn't consider him an equal. His small stature and humble background remained obvious, but they were forced to acknowledge his shooting abilities. "He's gotten lucky a few times," William muttered after Marcus outperformed him during a particularly challenging exercise. But luck doesn't last forever. Thomas Sterling was more generous in his assessment. "I don't know how he improved so much during winter break, but he's definitely earned his place in advanced training." The first major test of the advanced program came 6 weeks into the semester, when Reynolds announced that students would be evaluated on their ability to engage targets at distances up to 800 meters. This was true long-range sniping, requiring skills that few marksmen ever mastered. 800 meters was beyond the effective range of the standard training rifles that students had been using. For this test, Reynolds brought out the Academy's collection of precision sniper rifles, magnificent weapons that cost more than most people earned in a year. These rifles were equipped with advanced optics, carefully tuned triggers, and barrels that could place bullets with surgical precision in the hands of a skilled marksman. "These weapons," Reynolds explained while displaying the rifles, are identical to those used by active Royal Guard snipers. They are tools of extraordinary capability, but they require extraordinary skill to use effectively. Marcus felt his heart rate increase as he examined one of the precision rifles. It was heavier than the training rifles he was used to, with a telescopic sight that magnified distant targets and revealed details invisible to the naked eye. The trigger was so finely adjusted that it seemed to fire at the lightest touch. The test would be conducted over 2 days, with each student firing at targets ranging from 500 to 800 meters. Scoring would be based on accuracy, consistency, and the ability to engage multiple targets within time limits that simulated emergency conditions. William Blackwood tested first, his natural confidence evident as he handled the precision rifle with practiced ease. His family connections had given him access to similar weapons during his childhood, and his comfort with the advanced equipment showed in his performance. He achieved solid hits at 5 and 600 meters, struggled slightly at 700 meters, but managed to connect with targets at 800 meters often enough to post a respectable score. Thomas Sterling followed with comparable results, though his shooting was somewhat less consistent than Williams. The other advanced students performed at similar levels, good enough to demonstrate competence with precision equipment, but not exceptional. Marcus approached his testing session with the same careful preparation that had become his trademark. He spent extra time studying the distant targets through the telescopic sight, noting wind conditions and calculating the adjustments needed for accurate shooting at extreme ranges. His first shots at 500 meters were precise, grouping tightly around the target centers with accuracy that exceeded his performance during basic training. At 600 meters, his shots remained consistent, though the groups opened slightly due to the increased distance. 700 meters represented the beginning of truly challenging long-range shooting. At this distance, even tiny errors in technique or judgment would result in complete misses. Marcus took extra time for each shot, carefully controlling his breathing and timing his shots to coincide with his natural respiratory pauses. His first shot at 700 meters struck the target cleanly. His second shot hit slightly low, but within the scoring zone. His third shot found the target center with precision that drew quiet approval from Reynolds. His fourth and fifth shots both connected solidly. 5 hits out of 5 at 700 meters. Marcus had achieved perfect accuracy at a distance that challenged experienced marksmen. The 800-meter test was the ultimate challenge of the evaluation. At this extreme distance, the targets appeared tiny even through the powerful telescopic sights. Environmental factors like wind, temperature, and atmospheric pressure became critical considerations that could determine success or failure. Marcus settled into his shooting position with the calm focus that had become his signature. He studied the wind flags positioned along the range, noting the slight crosswind that would push bullets to the right. His first shot at 800 meters struck the target zone with a hit that surprised even Marcus himself. His second shot missed slightly to the left, falling just outside the scoring area. His third shot compensated for the miss and found the target cleanly. His fourth shot hit near the edge of the scoring zone. His fifth shot struck the target center. 4 hits out of 5 at 800 meters. Marcus had not just passed the most challenging test in the Academy's advanced marksmanship program. He had achieved the highest score in the class. Reynolds studied the target results with an expression of genuine amazement. In his years of teaching advanced marksmanship, he had rarely seen a student demonstrate such rapid improvement or achieve such exceptional accuracy under pressure. "Chun," Reynolds said after reviewing all the test scores, "your performance today was remarkable. I've recommended you for selection to the Royal Guard Sniper Program upon graduation." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. The Royal Guard Sniper Program was the most elite unit in the kingdom's military, consisting of fewer than 20 marksmen who provided precision shooting support for the most sensitive royal protection missions. Selection for the program was an honor that most Academy graduates could only dream of achieving. William Blackwood's face showed a mixture of shock and anger at the announcement. His family connections had virtually guaranteed him a position in the Royal Guard, but selection for the sniper program was based purely on demonstrated ability. Despite his advantages of birth and training, he had been outperformed by the small, quiet boy whom everyone had written off as hopeless. "Sir," Williams said carefully, "Chen has only been in advanced training for a few weeks. Don't you think more evaluation would be appropriate?" Reynolds' expression suggested he was not impressed by the question. "I evaluate students based on their performance, not on their family names or the length of their training. Chen's scores today speak for themselves." As the advanced marksmanship class concluded and students returned their weapons to the armory, Marcus found himself walking alone across the academy grounds. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows between the buildings, and he could hear the distant sounds of other students engaged in their evening activities. For the first time since arriving at the academy, Marcus felt something approaching contentment. He had found his place, discovered his talent, proved that he belonged among the institution's finest marksmen. The small compass his mother had given him seemed to pulse with warmth in his pocket, reminding him that true north had indeed never changed. But his satisfaction was tempered by the knowledge that greater challenges lay ahead. Excellence in training was one thing. Proving himself worthy of the Royal Guard under real-world conditions would be something else entirely. The academy had taught him to shoot with precision, but the royal family's safety would depend on much more than accuracy alone. That evening, as he cleaned and maintained his assigned rifle, Marcus allowed himself to imagine what serving as a Royal Guard sniper might entail. Protecting the king and queen during public appearances, standing ready to neutralize threats that other security measures couldn't address, bearing responsibility for the safety of the realm's most important people. It was a responsibility that would have seemed impossible when he first walked through the academy gates as a nervous, small boy who had never fired a weapon. Now it felt like destiny calling him toward a future he had earned through determination, sacrifice, and countless hours of practice on a cold, empty shooting range. The transformation was complete, though few people recognized it yet. Marcus Chun was no longer the struggling scholarship student who barely passed his examinations. He had become one of the Academy's most promising marksmen, selected for the kingdom's most elite military unit. But the real test of his abilities was still to come. The Royal Guard selection process was unlike anything the Academy had prepared Marcus for, despite years of rigorous training and testing. 2 weeks after Master Sergeant Reynolds' recommendation, Marcus received official orders to report to the Royal Palace complex for a week-long evaluation that would determine his fitness for the kingdom's most elite military unit. The palace complex occupied several square miles in the heart of the capital city, surrounded by walls that had been built and rebuilt over centuries of royal rule. The guard facilities were located in a separate section from the royal residences, but even this utilitarian area was more impressive than anything Marcus had experienced. The buildings were constructed from the same marble as the palace itself, with training facilities that made the Academy's equipment look primitive by comparison. Marcus arrived on a Monday morning in early spring, carrying a single duffel bag and wearing the dress uniform that all Academy students were issued for special occasions. The uniform fit him poorly, tailored for average-sized young men rather than someone of his slight build, but it was clean and properly maintained according to military standards. At the guard complex entrance, he presented his orders to a sergeant whose uniform bore the distinctive silver insignia of active Royal Guard service. The man examined Marcus with eyes that revealed nothing of his thoughts, taking in every detail from his polished boots to his nervously straight posture. "Chun, Marcus, reporting for selection evaluation," Marcus announced, using the formal protocol he had learned at the Academy. "Follow me," the sergeant replied without further comment. The interior of the guard complex was as impressive as its exterior suggested. Corridors lined with portraits of distinguished former guards led to training facilities that included indoor shooting ranges, tactical simulation rooms, and equipment storage areas filled with weapons and gear that represented the finest military technology available to the kingdom. Marcus was shown to a dormitory room that he would share with 11 other candidates from various military units throughout the kingdom. 3 were academy graduates like himself, while the others came from active army units, special operations forces, and elite police formations. All had been selected based on exceptional performance in their current assignments. His roommates were an intimidating group of men who possessed the kind of physical presence and quiet confidence that marked experienced soldiers. James Morrison was an Army sergeant who had served in 3 overseas campaigns, his face scarred by a bomb explosion that had earned him a medal for courage under fire. David Walsh came from the kingdom's Special Operations Forces, a compact, muscular man whose movements suggested years of training in close-quarters combat. Thomas Hartwell was a police sniper from the capital city, tall and lean with the steady eyes of someone accustomed to making life and death decisions under pressure. The academy graduates included Marcus, William Blackwood, who had also received selection for evaluation, and Robert Sterling, Thomas Sterling's older brother, who had graduated from the academy 2 years earlier and served with distinction in a regular army unit before applying for Royal Guard service. The 12 candidates represented the kingdom's finest military talent, all competing for perhaps 3 or 4 positions that might be offered at the conclusion of the selection process. The competition would be intense, and failure would mean returning to previous assignments with the knowledge that they had not measured up to the kingdom's highest military standards. Captain Harrison, the Royal Guard officer responsible for candidate evaluation, assembled the group in a briefing room that overlooked the palace gardens. Harrison was a man in his early 40s who carried himself with the authority that came from years of protecting the royal family. His uniform was immaculate, his bearing suggested complete confidence, and his eyes missed nothing as he studied each candidate. "Gentlemen," Harrison began, "you are here because your performance in previous assignments has identified you as potential Royal Guard material. However, potential means nothing without proven ability under the specific conditions that define our mission." He gestured toward the windows that provided a view of the palace grounds, where gardeners maintained flower beds and lawns with obsessive attention to detail. The Royal Guard exists for one purpose: ensuring the safety of the royal family under all circumstances. This is not merely a matter of standing at attention in ceremonial uniforms, though public duties are part of our responsibility. Our primary mission is threat assessment and neutralization, which requires skills far beyond basic military training. Harrison activated a projection system that displayed photographs of various royal protection scenarios, public appearances, state dinners, ceremonial events, and travel situations that required constant vigilance and split-second decision-making. During the next week, you will be evaluated on marksmanship, tactical decision-making, physical fitness, psychological stability, and ability to function under extreme pressure. The standards are absolute. We accept only candidates who demonstrate perfection in all areas. Marcus felt his mouth go dry as he absorbed the implications of Harrison's briefing. The academy had been challenging, but it was preparation for this moment. Everything he had accomplished during his months of training would be tested against the kingdom's highest possible standards. Additionally, Harrison continued, "You will be evaluated on your ability to blend into civilian environments while maintaining security awareness. Royal protection often requires guards who can observe and react to threats without appearing to be military personnel. This requirement presented a particular challenge for some candidates. Men like James Morrison and David Walsh, whose bearing and appearance clearly marked them as professional soldiers, would need to develop skills that allowed them to appear ordinary while remaining ready for instant action. The first day of evaluation focused on advanced marksmanship skills that went far beyond academy training standards. The Royal Guard shooting ranges included facilities for precision work at distances up to 1,000 meters, along with scenarios that simulated the specific conditions guards might face while protecting the royal family. One exercise required candidates to engage targets while positioned in a replica of the palace balcony from which the royal family greeted public crowds. The shooting positions were awkward, with limited fields of view and restrictions that simulated the presence of innocent civilians. Candidates had to identify and neutralize threat targets without endangering bystanders represented by cardboard figures mixed among the hostile targets. Marcus approached the exercise with the careful analysis that had become his trademark. He studied the scenario setup, identified the most likely threat positions, and planned his engagement sequence to minimize exposure time while maximizing accuracy. His academy training had prepared him well for this type of complex tactical shooting. When his turn came to perform the exercise, Marcus moved through the scenario with smooth efficiency that impressed even the Royal Guard evaluators. His shots were precise, his target identification was flawless, and his movement between positions was tactical sound. He completed the exercise in excellent time while achieving perfect accuracy against all threats. William Blackwood performed well in the same exercise, though his natural aggressiveness led him to take unnecessary risks that might have endangered civilians in a real situation. His shooting was accurate, but his tactical decisions showed room for improvement. The other candidates demonstrated varying levels of ability, with the experienced soldiers generally showing better tactical awareness than pure marksmanship skills, while the academy graduates tended to excel in shooting accuracy, but struggled with the tactical complexities. The second day introduced psychological evaluation that probed each candidate's ability to handle the mental pressures associated with Royal Guard service. The evaluation included written tests, personal interviews, and scenario-based exercises that revealed how candidates would react under extreme stress. Marcus found himself in an interview room across from Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a psychologist who specialized in military personnel evaluation. Dr. Mitchell was a middle-aged woman whose gentle manner concealed a penetrating intelligence that made candidates feel as though their deepest thoughts were being examined. "Tell me about your motivation for seeking Royal Guard service," she began, her voice calm and encouraging. Marcus had anticipated this question, but the answer felt different when spoken aloud in this formal setting. "I want to serve my country in the most meaningful way possible. Protecting the royal family represents the highest form of military service." "Many people say similar things," Dr. Mitchell observed. "What makes your motivation genuine rather than simply ambitious?" The question forced Marcus to examine his true feelings about Royal Guard service. Was he seeking the prestige and recognition that came with the position, or did he genuinely feel called to protect others regardless of personal benefit? During academy training, he replied carefully, "I learned that I have abilities that could be valuable in protecting people who can't protect themselves. The royal family faces threats that require specific skills to address. If I have those skills, I believe I have an obligation to use them." Dr. Mitchell made notes in a file that she kept closed throughout their conversation. "Describe a situation where you had to overcome significant personal challenges." Marcus told her about his struggles during first semester at the academy, his decision to remain during winter break for additional training, and the gradual development of his marksmanship abilities through determined practice. He tried to be honest about his fears and doubts without appearing weak or unsuitable for Royal Guard service. "What would you do if ordered to take an action that conflicted with your personal beliefs?" Dr. Mitchell asked. The question was clearly designed to explore his potential for absolute loyalty to the crown, but Marcus sensed that a thoughtless answer about following any order would be wrong. "I would seek clarification of the order and its justification," he replied. "But ultimately, if the order came through proper Royal Guard channels and served the protection of the royal family, I would follow it, even if innocent people might be harmed." "Royal Guard service sometimes requires impossible choices," Marcus said, "but our primary obligation is to the royal family's safety, and that obligation supersedes other considerations." Dr. Mitchell smiled for the first time during their interview. "That's a mature answer that shows you understand the ethical complexities of protection work." The third day focused on physical fitness evaluation that tested not only strength and endurance, but agility and coordination required for Royal Guard duties. The tests were designed around scenarios that guards might actually encounter rather than arbitrary measures of athletic ability. One exercise required candidates to climb a replica of the palace's exterior walls while carrying full gear and weapons. The wall climbing simulated emergency situations where guards might need to reach elevated positions quickly for tactical advantage or evacuation purposes. Marcus's light weight proved advantageous in this scenario. While larger candidates struggled with the physical demands of the climb, he moved up the walls with efficiency that surprised the evaluators. His months of academy physical training had developed functional strength rather than impressive bulk, and that functional approach served him well in practical applications. Another exercise tested candidates' ability to provide close protection during simulated public appearances. Each candidate was assigned to protect an evaluator playing the role of a royal family member while moving through crowds of people who might conceal hostile actors. This exercise combined physical alertness with tactical awareness and decision-making under pressure. Candidates had to identify potential threats in crowded environments while maintaining positions that would allow them to react instantly to hostile actions. Marcus excelled in this type of exercise, his analytical mind allowing him to process multiple sources of information simultaneously while maintaining focus on his protection assignment. His small size was again an advantage, allowing him to move through crowds without creating the obvious security presence that larger guards generated. The fourth day introduced advanced tactical scenarios that required candidates to work as teams while addressing complex security situations. These exercises were designed to reveal leadership potential and ability to coordinate with other guards under high-stress conditions. One memorable exercise placed candidates in a scenario where the royal family was attending a state dinner that came under attack from multiple hostile actors. The attack involved coordinated threats from different directions, requiring guards to communicate effectively while neutralizing dangers without endangering the people they were protecting. Marcus found himself working with William Blackwood and two experienced military candidates in a team responsible for securing the main dining area. The scenario required split-second coordination between team members, with each guard covering specific sectors while maintaining awareness of the overall tactical situation. During the exercise, Marcus identified a hostile actor who was positioning himself to threaten the simulated royal family from an elevated position. The shot required precision accuracy at moderate range while avoiding several innocent bystanders who were in the same general area. Marcus took the shot without hesitation, his months of advanced training allowing him to make the complex calculation almost instantaneously. The shot was perfect, neutralizing the threat without endangering anyone else. But, more importantly, his quick action and accurate shooting allowed his teammates to focus on other aspects of the scenario without worrying about the elevated threat. His contribution to the team's success was recognized by evaluators who noted his ability to support group objectives while maintaining individual excellence. William Blackwood performed well in the same exercise, though his tendency to seek individual recognition sometimes conflicted with optimal team dynamics. The experienced military candidates brought tactical awareness that complemented the academy graduates' technical skills. The fifth day featured the evaluation that everyone dreaded: live-fire scenarios using specialized ammunition designed to simulate real combat conditions without causing permanent injury to participants. These exercises would test every aspect of training under conditions that approached actual Royal Guard missions. Candidates were equipped with protective gear and specialized weapons loaded with marking rounds that would indicate hits while allowing evaluators to assess performance under genuine stress. The scenarios included everything from sniper situations to close-range protection work. Marcus's scenario involved protecting a simulated royal family member during a public appearance that came under sniper attack from an unknown location. His assignment was to locate and neutralize the threat while ensuring the safety of his protected person and innocent bystanders in the area. The exercise took place in a replica of the capital city's main square, complete with buildings that provided multiple potential sniper positions. Marcus had to analyze the tactical situation, identify the most likely threat locations, and develop a response plan in real time while maintaining protection of his assigned person. When simulated sniper fire began, Marcus immediately moved his protected person to cover while scanning the surrounding buildings for muzzle flashes or other indicators of the shooter's position. His academy training in advanced marksmanship had taught him to think like a sniper, understanding the considerations that would influence an attacker's choice of position. He identified the threat location based on tactical analysis rather than obvious visual cues, then planned his response to neutralize the sniper while minimizing his own exposure. Using his knowledge of long-range shooting, he positioned himself to take advantage of environmental factors that would improve his accuracy while degrading the hostile sniper's effectiveness. His shot was successful, hitting the simulated target at a range of nearly 600 meters under combat conditions that included time pressure, protective responsibilities, and the stress of live-fire exercise. The evaluators noted that his performance combined technical skill with tactical thinking in a way that demonstrated genuine Royal Guard potential. The final evaluation exercise combined all previous elements into a comprehensive scenario that lasted several hours and tested every aspect of candidate abilities. The scenario involved protecting the entire simulated royal family during a complex public event that included multiple security threats, equipment failures, and communication problems. Marcus found himself assigned as part of an Overwatch team responsible for long-range surveillance and precision shooting support for the main protection detail. His position was in an elevated building overlooking the event area, armed with a precision rifle and communication equipment that linked him to other team members. The scenario developed over several hours, with threats appearing at different times and locations that required coordinated response from all team members. Marcus's role required him to maintain surveillance of his assigned sector while remaining ready to provide precision shooting support anywhere in the event area. When multiple threats appeared simultaneously, testing the team's ability to coordinate under extreme pressure, Marcus found himself engaging targets at various ranges while providing information to other team members about threats in his observation area. His performance throughout the extended exercise demonstrated not only technical proficiency with precision shooting, but the kind of sustained concentration and tactical awareness that marked professional protection specialists. His communication with other team members was clear and helpful, his shooting was accurate under pressure, and his decision-making remained sound despite the complexity of the evolving scenario. At the conclusion of the week-long evaluation, all 12 candidates assembled in the same briefing room where their testing had begun. Captain Harrison reviewed their performance with the same professional demeanor he had maintained throughout the selection process. "The Royal Guard evaluation has concluded," Harrison announced. "Your performance during the past week has been carefully assessed by our training staff, and decisions have been made regarding selection for service." Marcus felt his heart pounding as he waited to learn whether his months of preparation and years of academy training had been sufficient to earn a position in the kingdom's most elite unit. "The following candidates have been selected for Royal Guard service," Harrison continued, consulting a list that would determine the future course of their military careers. James Morrison, David Walsh, Marcus Chun, and William Blackwood. Marcus felt a moment of disbelief followed by overwhelming relief and pride. He had not only been selected for Royal Guard service, but he had earned his position through demonstrated ability under the most challenging evaluation conditions the kingdom's military could devise. "Chun," Harrison said, addressing him directly, "you have been selected specifically for the Sniper Specialist program. Your marksmanship abilities and tactical decision-making during evaluation exercises were exceptional. The assignment to Sniper Specialist duty was the highest recognition Marcus could have hoped to achieve." The Royal Guard Sniper program consisted of fewer than 10 marksmen who provided precision shooting support for the most sensitive protection missions. As the selected candidates received their assignment details and preparation instructions, Marcus realized that his journey from struggling academy student to Royal Guard Sniper Specialist represented more than personal achievement. It demonstrated that ability and determination could overcome every disadvantage of birth, wealth, or social position. The small compass his mother had given him seemed to pulse with significance as he prepared to begin the most important assignment of his life. True north had indeed never changed, leading him through every challenge and setback to this moment of triumph. But Marcus understood that selection for Royal Guard service was only the beginning. His real test would come when he assumed responsibility for protecting the royal family under conditions where failure could have consequences that extended far beyond his personal career. The kingdom's safety would soon depend on the skills he had developed through countless hours of practice, study, and determination. It was a responsibility that would have seemed impossible when he first arrived at the academy as a nervous, uncertain boy. Now it felt like the destiny he had been preparing for all along. The Royal Guard Sniper Specialist program operated from a secure facility within the palace complex that most people never knew existed. Hidden beneath the formal gardens that tourists photograph during public tours, the underground facility contained training rooms, equipment storage, communication centers, and living quarters for the kingdom's most elite marksmen. Marcus reported for duty on a gray Monday morning in late spring, wearing the distinctive black uniform of Royal Guard specialists. The uniform fit him properly for the first time in his military career, tailored specifically for his small frame by the palace's own clothing specialists. The silver insignia on his collar identified him as a qualified sniper, while a small crown emblem marked his assignment to royal protection duties. Colonel Matthews, the commander of Royal Guard Special Operations, greeted Marcus in an office that overlooked the underground training facilities. Matthews was a veteran of 30 years in royal protection, a man whose calm demeanor concealed the kind of experience that came from facing real threats to the royal family's safety. "Welcome to the Royal Guard, Specialist Chun," Matthews said, using the formal title that Marcus would carry for the rest of his service. "Your academy instructors and evaluation scores suggest you have exceptional potential, but potential means nothing until it's proven under operational conditions." Marcus stood at attention while Matthews reviewed his training records and evaluation reports. The colonel's office walls were covered with photographs showing royal family events from decades of service, each image representing a successful protection mission where guards had ensured the safety of the kingdom's most important people. "Your assignment will be as part of Overwatch Team 3, responsible for long-range surveillance and precision shooting support during royal protection missions. Your team leader is Master Sergeant Rodriguez, who has served as a Royal Guard sniper for 8 years without a single mission failure." Matthews handed Marcus a thick folder containing operational protocols, security procedures, and mission briefings that would guide his service. The information was classified at the highest levels of government security, accessible only to people whose loyalty had been tested and verified through years of background investigation. "Study these materials carefully," Matthews instructed. "Your first operational assignment begins tomorrow morning. The royal family will be attending the annual Spring Festival in the Capitol Square, and your team will provide Overwatch support for the main protection detail." Marcus felt a combination of excitement and nervous tension as he realized that his months of training would be put to practical use within hours of beginning his Royal Guard service. The Spring Festival was one of the kingdom's largest public events, attracting tens of thousands of people to the Capitol Square for a celebration that lasted from dawn until midnight. The underground facility assigned to Overwatch Team 3 was a marvel of modern military technology disguised within centuries-old palace architecture. The team's operational center included computer systems that could access surveillance cameras throughout the capital city, communication equipment that linked them to every other Royal Guard unit, and weapon storage containing precision rifles that represented the finest military technology available. Master Sergeant Rodriguez was a compact, weathered man whose Spanish accent reflected his family's immigration to the kingdom 2 generations earlier. His dark eyes missed nothing as he studied Marcus with the careful attention of someone whose life might depend on his new team member's abilities. "So you're the academy graduate who shot perfect scores during evaluation," Rodriguez said, consulting Marcus's service record. Impressive numbers, but numbers don't tell me whether you can function when someone's trying to kill the people you're protecting. The other members of Overwatch Team 3 represented years of experience in royal protection missions. Sergeant First Class Thompson was a veteran sniper whose service record included successful missions in 12 different countries. Sergeant Williams specialized in surveillance and target identification, while Corporal Davis managed communications and tactical coordination with other Royal Guard units. Chun will be taking over the secondary sniper position, Rodriguez announced to the team. Davis, bring him up to speed on tomorrow's mission requirements. Marcus spent the afternoon studying detailed plans for the Spring Festival Protection Mission. The royal family would arrive at the Capitol Square in the early morning, participate in traditional ceremonies throughout the day, and deliver a formal address to the assembled crowds in the evening. Each phase of their appearance required different security arrangements and different positions for Overwatch team support. The mission planning process revealed complexities that Marcus had never considered during his academy training. Protecting the royal family wasn't simply a matter of watching for obvious threats and shooting accurately when necessary. Every aspect of their public appearance had to be analyzed for potential security risks, from the structural integrity of temporary platforms to the possibility of threats concealed among thousands of innocent civilians. Marcus's position during the mission would be on the roof of the Royal Bank building, which overlooked the main festival area from an elevation of approximately 200 feet. His field of view would cover the ceremonial platform where the royal family would participate in festival activities, along with several blocks of surrounding streets that could conceal potential threats. The precision rifle assigned to Marcus for the mission was unlike anything he had used during training. The weapon was a custom-built system that incorporated the latest advances in optics, ballistics, and precision engineering. Its telescopic sight could identify human faces at distances exceeding 1,000 meters, while computer systems built into the scope could calculate environmental factors that affected bullet trajectories. This rifle cost more than most people make in 5 years, Rodriguez explained, while demonstrating the weapon's capabilities. But it's designed to place bullets exactly where they need to go under any conditions you might encounter during royal protection missions. Marcus spent hours familiarizing himself with the weapon's systems, learning to use the advanced optics and computer-assisted targeting that would be essential for long-range precision work. The rifle felt different from academy training weapons. Heavier, more complex, but capable of accuracy that approached the theoretical limits of physics. The evening before the Spring Festival mission, Marcus found himself alone in the team's operational center, reviewing mission plans and checking equipment that could mean the difference between success and catastrophe. The underground facility was quiet except for the hum of electronic equipment and the distant sounds of palace staff preparing for the next day's events. His mother's compass rested on the desk beside his mission briefing materials, its brass surface reflecting the room's artificial lighting. He had carried the compass through every challenge since leaving home for the academy, and it had become a symbol of the steady determination that had brought him to this moment. The Spring Festival mission began before dawn, with Royal Guard teams taking their positions while the capital city remained quiet and empty. Marcus climbed to his assigned position on the Royal Bank building as the eastern sky showed the first hints of sunrise, carrying his precision rifle and communication equipment that would link him to other team members throughout the day. The view from his position was spectacular, encompassing the entire festival area and extending to the horizon in all directions. The Capitol Square looked different from this elevation, revealing patterns and potential problems that weren't obvious from ground level. Marcus could see the ceremonial platform where the royal family would appear, the crowd control barriers that would channel thousands of people through designated areas, and the positions of other Royal Guard teams that formed multiple layers of protection. Overwatch 3 in position. Marcus reported through his communication system, using the formal protocol that would govern all team communications during the mission. Copy, Overwatch 3. Rodriguez replied from his position on the opposite side of the square. Begin systematic surveillance of assigned sectors. Marcus settled into his shooting position and began the careful process of long-range observation that would continue throughout the day. His telescopic sight allowed him to examine individual faces in crowds that were still assembling in the early morning hours, searching for behavioral patterns that might indicate hostile intent. The royal family arrived at 9 o'clock in a convoy of armored vehicles that approached the festival area from a route that had been cleared and secured by advance teams. Marcus watched through his scope as King Edward and Queen Margaret emerged from their vehicle, accompanied by their teenage children Prince Alexander and Princess Catherine. The royal family looked smaller and more vulnerable than they appeared in official photographs, a reminder that Marcus's mission was about protecting real people rather than abstract symbols of government authority. King Edward was a man in his early 60s whose gray hair and dignified bearing reflected decades of public service. Queen Margaret moved with the grace that came from years of public appearances, but Marcus could see the subtle tension in her posture that suggested awareness of potential dangers. Prince Alexander, at 17, was only a year younger than Marcus had been when he first arrived at the academy. The prince's confident smile and easy interaction with festival crowds reminded Marcus of William Blackwood's natural charisma, though Alexander's confidence was tempered by security awareness that had been part of his education since childhood. Princess Catherine, at 15, possessed the kind of natural beauty that made her a favorite subject of the kingdom's photographers. But Marcus could see the careful way she stayed close to her security detail while maintaining the appearance of relaxed enjoyment. The morning ceremonies proceeded without incident, with the royal family participating in traditional festival activities while hundreds of royal guard personnel maintained security, both visible and concealed. Marcus tracked potential threats through his scope, noting individuals whose behavior warranted closer observation without identifying any clear dangers. At 11:30, his scope picked up movement in a building approximately 400 meters from the ceremonial platform. The movement was subtle, a window opening in a building that should have been cleared and secured by advance teams. Marcus adjusted his scope's focus and magnification to examine the window more carefully. A figure appeared briefly in the window opening, then disappeared back into the building's interior. The person's movements were furtive, suggesting someone who was trying to avoid observation while positioning himself for actions that probably weren't innocent. Possible threat identified, Marcus reported through his communication system. Building Sector 7 Alpha, 4th floor window on the east side. Copy, Overwatch 3, Rodriguez replied immediately. Maintain observation while ground teams investigate. Marcus kept his scope focused on the suspicious window while Royal Guard teams moved to investigate the building from ground level. The person in the building appeared again, this time carrying what looked like a rifle case that he was positioning near the window opening. Confirmed threat, Marcus reported, his voice calm despite the adrenaline that was beginning to flow through his system. Hostile actor with weapon preparing to engage. Take the shot when ready, Rodriguez responded without hesitation. Marcus felt time slow down as his training took control of his actions. He adjusted his scope for the precise range to the target, calculated wind effects using the information displayed by his rifle's computer systems, and controlled his breathing to achieve the steady pulse that marked expert marksman. The hostile actor appeared in his scope's crosshairs, clearly visible through the 4th floor window, as he prepared to aim his own weapon toward the ceremonial platform, where the royal family was participating in festival activities. Marcus could see the man's face clearly enough to note his expression of concentrated hatred. Marcus squeezed the trigger with the smooth, controlled pressure that had become automatic through thousands of hours of practice. The rifle fired with a soft sound that was barely audible above the noise of festival crowds, its advanced suppressor system designed to avoid creating panic during protection missions. Through his scope, Marcus watched his bullets strike the hostile actor center mass, ending the threat instantly and permanently. The man collapsed backward into the building, his weapon clattering uselessly to the floor. Threat neutralized, Marcus reported, his voice steady despite having just fired his first shot in defense of the royal family. Excellent work, Overwatch 3, Rodriguez replied. Ground teams confirmed target down. Résumé normal surveillance pattern. Marcus adjusted his scope to continue monitoring his assigned sectors, but his hands were shaking slightly from the adrenaline of actual combat. He had trained for this moment through years of academy work and months of specialized preparation, but the reality of using his skills to protect human lives was more intense than any simulation could replicate. The rest of the spring festival proceeded without incident, with the royal family participating in afternoon ceremonies and evening addresses while remaining unaware of the threat that had been eliminated by Marcus's precise shooting. The successful mission was noted in Royal Guard records as a textbook example of Overwatch team effectiveness. That evening, as Marcus cleaned and maintained his rifle in the underground facility, Colonel Matthews visited to debrief the day's mission and discuss his performance under operational conditions. "Outstanding work today, Specialist Chun," Matthews said, reviewing the mission report that documented Marcus's threat identification and neutralization. "Your response was fast, accurate, and professional. Exactly what we expect from Royal Guard snipers." Marcus felt pride at the colonel's praise, but also a soberness that came from understanding the full weight of his responsibilities. He had proven himself capable of the precision shooting that protected the royal family, but he also understood that today's mission was only the beginning of a career that would bring similar challenges on a regular basis. Over the following months, Marcus participated in dozens of royal protection missions that tested every aspect of his training and abilities. State dinners that required covert surveillance from concealed positions. International visits where hostile foreign agents might attempt assassination or kidnapping. Public appearances in locations that presented complex security challenges requiring innovative solutions. Each mission brought new learning experiences and opportunities to demonstrate the skills he had developed through determination and practice. His reputation within the Royal Guard grew as other specialists recognized his exceptional abilities and professional dedication. William Blackwood, who had been assigned to a different Royal Guard unit, occasionally worked missions that brought them into contact. Their relationship had evolved from the antagonistic dynamic of academy days into professional respect based on mutual competence in their assigned duties. "I have to admit," Williams said after one particularly challenging mission where Marcus's shooting had prevented a potential tragedy, "I was wrong about you during academy training. You've proven yourself beyond any doubt." Marcus appreciated the recognition, though he understood that his success wasn't about proving others wrong or achieving personal validation. His role as a Royal Guard sniper was about protecting people who couldn't protect themselves, using abilities that he had developed through years of focused effort. The small compass his mother had given him remained in his equipment kit, a reminder of the guidance that had brought him through every challenge. True north had never changed, leading him from uncertainty and struggle to a position where his skills served the highest purposes available to any marksman. But Marcus's greatest test was still approaching, a mission that would require everything he had learned about precision shooting, tactical thinking, and performance under pressure that exceeded anything he had previously experienced. The Autumn Diplomatic Summit would bring world leaders to the kingdom for negotiations that could determine the course of international relations for decades to come. The security challenges would be unprecedented, and the consequences of failure would extend far beyond the kingdom's borders. Marcus, while